Man making the pick for the Philadelphia 76ers in June's draft. Has a long history from Houston to Philadelphia now, but he's never picked as high as number 3. What will that look like for the Philadelphia 76ers as we continue to go over a number of names, disagreements, agreements along the way? In the end, it's going to be Daryl Morey making the call. What is, as Kyle said before the show, what does a Daryl Morey player look like, especially at pick number 3? We'll talk about it here on this Friday on the PHLY Sixers podcast alongside Derek Bodner, Kyle Newbeck. I'm Devon Givens. Bree, our president of basketball operations, is here. All of you in the chat, it's good to see you active and early here for this Friday show. And we have a long list of players to go over, maybe some players that were drafted around those particular players that were ultimately selected by Daryl Morey as he started his executive career in Houston as a guy in charge in 2007 for the Houston Rockets. That ran from 2007 to 2020, as we know, in October, and then picking that up for the Sixers here in Philadelphia at that time. And that was the COVID year. So it was a weird year to start things off, but he's done pretty well with some of these picks that we will discuss both in the first round and in the second round. But again, does it give us any indication of the type of player that he may like, from Ace Bailey to Trey Johnson, VJ Edgecombe, Con Knipple, and maybe even some of the big players, the big guys that we've discussed here along the way? We'll get to the news and notes a little bit later, talk about some other things around the league and basketball in general. But Derek, as we sit here and we start this one off on this Friday and we look at Daryl Morey's history and we see going all the way back to 2007, some of the names, man, that we you know them, but then you
some
put
real
them,
remember some guys moments. Right. That's what we were talking about before the
right.
show.
And some of them you're like, man, I forgot about that guy right there. And, oh, I forgot he was drafted that high, or I forgot he was drafted that late. And look at the career that he had. And Daryl Morey picked those guys, man. So as we started off, and Kyle talked about it before the show off camera, but just looking at, and you guys have discussed this before, but trying to get an idea of what a Daryl Morey guy looks like. And so when you went back and looked at some of these, and did you get any indication of how it looked then to where it looks now, especially as we lead into less than a month away, the 3rd overall pick?
Yeah, I mean, and this was something that you guys were talking about as well before the show. It seems like first of all, I think it's overall a pretty good draft record. Not perfect, because no draft record is going to be flawless, especially with Daryl Morey, who generally doesn't draft in the lottery all that often. In fact, some of the lottery picks have been some of his bigger misses, which I'm sure we'll get to. But I think overall, there's a pretty strong track record there. You know, I think early on in his career, I think he's always leaned towards two things. One, college production, and 2, pretty projectable, like, physical attributes. Mm-hmm. Early in his career, I think he generally leaned pretty heavily on upperclassmen, or at least more than he did later on in his career, especially when you start talking about people like Carl Landry, who was a junior, second-round pick in his first draft. Aaron Brooks was a 4-year starter in his first draft. I think early on he tended to gravitate towards, and again, a lot of that comes down to where you're drafting, I think. Like when you're drafting late in that first round or in that second round, you're probably just looking for someone who has proven more skill-wise on the court. You're not looking to project as much, because if you're confident in that projection, they would probably go in the first round or higher in the draft. Later on in his draft record, I think he probably started leaning a little bit more towards underclassmen, freshmen especially. We saw that here with Maxey and McCain, players who produced, as younger players and had a lot of room to grow. And it seemed like he really started to gravitate towards those. But I think those two are what I would say, like, the project types, the players who didn't really produce in college and had a lot of maybe projectable skills, but you had to really, I apologize for the phrase, squint to see that turning into a productive NBA player. He hasn't drafted a lot of those types of players. And again, it's tough to really take an overarching view when you're talking about each year is unique, each year is different, very different portions of the draft that you're drafting in, and also just like what he did 18 years ago, he probably evolved a little bit as a basketball executive. But I think that's probably where I would start.
Yeah, and that is part of what I wanted to get into to open the show, is that it's very difficult to take a decision he made in 2008 and say, this is how we apply it to 2025, right? Because number one, Daryl, through his experiences, has changed a lot, or you would think has evolved a lot. The league in that amount of time has changed several times over, right? You're coming out of a very different era of basketball in 2007, 2008 into those early 2010s. And then the league really kind of embraces Daryl's, I guess not Daryl himself. Daryl's part of that vanguard of like shoot more threes, generate free throws, and not ignore everything else, but diminish the long twos and some of the less efficient offense that people have debated for many, many years and will continue doing into the future. So I think one of the things that I noticed early on, if you're trying to say, oh, maybe this is how Daryl has changed from when he's seen as more of the numbers guy, then now he's part of the establishment in the league, was I think there was a more consistent advanced stat or just all-in-one stat lean with their picks. Like you had to clear a certain level of all-around production that has not necessarily been the case. And I actually think one of the best examples of that was Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese Maxey, although he's got good high school indicators as a shooter, certainly he was a highly valued prospect in terms of the background work and his reputation in general. Statistically, not a lot of good indicators in his profile, right? If you were just looking at him as numbers on a page, you would have said, he's okay and he's got some good traits and tools and whatnot, but this is not a player that the box score, the all-in-one stats are telling you must take this player. That was an example of where I think you've seen the Sixers lean under Morey's leadership, which is we're leaning more toward the consensus guys who fall, the guys who maybe are rated higher, who are viewed as high-level prospects that for one reason or another, tough college season, injuries, size, in the case of Jared McCain, if they fall to us, we'll just say we believe in whatever that track record looks like. We believe that the one season they had at Kentucky or Duke or wherever it was, that's not all of their basketball story, right? There's more to that. Justin Edwards being another good example. But as Derek said, I do think it's really tough to say, hey, this is what they've done at pick 22. This is what they've done at pick 45 or wherever they end up, and then say, yeah, that's a direct one-to-one. Here's what they'll do at number 3, right? I think it'd be silly to treat it that way. But I think older prospects, as Derek said, guys who are productive players. Another one, and thankfully I think most of the guys we would discuss at 3, save for Knipple, fall under this umbrella, loves him some wingspan, right? Most of the guys that he has drafted, save for, I believe, Hartenstein in Houston, have been, it's either 3 or 3.5 inches plus on the wingspan. And Jared McCain is the other notable example, but generally has tended toward players who, even if they're not tall, like DeAnthony Melton, for example, they have big wingspans, and that gives them some multi-position versatility on the defensive end.
So I'll just go to the more recent one where you do look at the Jared McCain part of it. Well, first to your Tyrese Maxey piece, of course, the COVID part, that was difficult because of how things played out where they didn't have a tournament. You couldn't really get to guys the way that you wanted to like you normally will for a pre-draft process. But then also it was 21. So like we've discussed even this year, if they did have a pick somewhere around 21 or even talking about trading back into it, some guys start to fall and you're like, wait a minute, we had him higher up on the board, even though maybe some of those measurements and all that stuff doesn't necessarily translate to what they typically like. Maxey falls to that 21 spot and you're like, all right, this guy's there. We got to take it. We'll figure it out when we get there. And he's still projected to be
You're
a
not
good
saying,
player.
hey, we have Shake Milton
as
our bench guard.
Exactly.
We're not going to draft Tyrese Maxey.
Who has a good wingspan.
Yeah.
But hey, this guy might turn
wingspan,
out to be pretty good. And then to the McCain piece, where we're all sitting there together, all 5 of us last year sitting there doing the draft show. And while we had talked about McCain, we never discussed that Dalton Connect as much, which helps us even here in this process as we talk about these players at the top, which is easier because they're picking 3rd and there are so many players to talk about. But we just thought that Dalton McCain wouldn't be there for the other teams.
I think you just combined 2 people. You said Dalton McCain.
Dalton McCain.
If you could give Jared
McCain was tall,
that
would be pretty good. Dalton Connect, while he was there, and we were sitting there saying, wait a minute. I mean, the guy's still there, so doesn't this seem like building this basketball team out, he would be the right player for this particular team and not the smaller version of the Jared McCain piece. And while it may not tell us, again, the player that he may want, it totally went a different direction of where we thought he would go because of what this team needed and building out the roster for the Sixers, even at pick number 16.
Now that one, you could spin multiple ways, right? If you wanted to try to say, this is why they'll take Ace Bailey at number 3. The McCain over Connect decision is about not caring about fit, right? You're saying, or not caring, like you're just saying, we're getting the best guy. We're getting the highest upside guy here. We don't care that he's younger and Connect is maybe a more quote unquote pro-ready player. And that ended up not being true, by the way. Jared McCain came in and was lighting it up basically immediately. But we're not worried so much about the fit, all that. And so you say, we'll take a bigger swing, right? And maybe that leans toward an Ace Bailey there. Or the other side of it is, again, you don't care about fit. You say, well, I don't care if Jared McCain can't, or you're skeptical if Jared McCain can play next to Tyrese Maxey, and the roster has different needs. We're drafting this kid. That's more of a Trey Johnson, VJ Edgecombe type of pick, right? So it really, even this is eye of the beholder type stuff. So that's kind of going to be the lesson of going back through history here is you could try to spin it any way you want. And I think to me, what I came away from this process of just looking through these picks, looking at who was there, looking at, measurement databases and college production, all that is, I don't know that there is a definitive Daryl Morey guy, right? No. I think to his credit, and I think to the credit of the people who have worked with him, they are adaptable based on what the situation is and what the given class is, right? It's not you line it up, this guy's PER or BPM or whatever, sold. He has not been that type of guy, and I think that's to his credit and certainly the people around him.
The funny thing is, I think Kyle, that there are 2 Daryl Morey guys. They're just going 1 and 2. In this one, right?
Cooper Flagg is everybody's guy. Yeah. That's the thing.
And even Dylan Harper would be, I think, a Daryl Morey guy if he was still on the board, even at number 3, if somehow San Antonio decided to go in another direction. But yeah, I just felt those 2 for sure. Those would be the easy ones. But yeah, as we looked at the list, and when we come back from the break, we'll run through.
We'll do some some guys.
And start to run through some names because there's some good names in there. Some good names and some good players that turned out that Daryl Morey selected, not only in the first round, but specifically in those later rounds like we saw with Tyrese Maxey late, Isaiah Joe, Paul Reed for the Sixers that we all know of, that we're not breaking any news there. Adem Bona at 41 last year in June's draft. That was another good one. And as Kyle mentioned, Justin Edwards as an undrafted player for the Sixers last year. So when we come back, so everybody get ready, because when we throw these names at you, we know we're going to get a reaction. So react to the names, and we'll talk about a lot of them as we try to figure out, while there may not be a definitive answer, can you guys sift through it and say, you know what? Player X in this draft does fit the mold of that player that we're talking about from Houston or even the Sixers draft that might give us a little bit of an indication of where the Sixers front office may go in less than a month. We'll do that when we get back right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast. And I need to tell you guys about, a little bit of making these wagers. There's no basketball game tonight because the Western Conference Finals is complete. Oklahoma City is moving on. You have a game tomorrow for Game 6 in the East, but you still do have hockey. You have baseball and maybe some other sport that you would like to place a wager on, and you want to have some good information about it. Well, let me tell you about Hall of Fame Bets. That's, of course, HOF. This is a great, easy app to navigate where sports are going on for you to bet on. Parlay, of course, for you to get a win. We've all been there where your parlays is one leg away and you're ticked off saying, oh, I should have done this. I should have taken that number down to one point, right? You want to take that 1 point right there. Or something that happens with the relief pitcher live in the game and the bomb happens in the ninth inning and there's some heartbreak for you. Well, I know it sounds familiar. We've all been there. The HOF app is built to fix that. Started by two lifelong sports fans who also happen to be Ivy League grads. HOF makes parlay research smarter, faster, and data-driven. So when you want to put together that home run parlay on your specific site, like you know who we talk about here a lot, it's very easy. This is not your buddy's group chat full of hot takes where you're like, oh, this is my buddy, but he doesn't know what he's talking about. The Hall of Fame app, HOF app, gives you access to advanced stats, historical data, and powerful tools to help make you smarter. Whether it's the MLB, NBA, NFL, NHL, or college sports, the app gives you beautiful charts, clean visuals, and real insight, not just hype. They believe anything the books know, you should know too. So, as we tell you about it right now, our listeners get a 7-day free trial at 50% off their first month. Just download the HOF app and use code PHLY at checkout. HOF isn't just about parlays. It's built for player props, game lines, totals, and more, giving you the tools to break down the trends, spot value, and make smarter bets across every market. For a limited time, again, our listeners, 7-day free trial, but they also get the 50% off their first month when they use code PHLY at checkout. Just download the HOF app on iOS and Android or visit HOFbets.com, enter code PHLY, and folks, you'll be all set. All right, now I got to tell you about, let's keep it going. Let's talk about making some money, and that is at Bet365. 90 million users worldwide, 780,000 live streams a year, and they were our partner for the entire basketball season, and we couldn't be more proud to team up with them throughout the run. Early payout offers across the NBA and the NHL. I think we were pretty on the positive side at the end of the year, and that was also part due to the live in-game betting, as you can just start to navigate things, make some adjustments, if you will, as the game was going on. New customers can get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5. Win or lose, sign up, use the code PHLY365, deposit 10, place a bet for $5, and you get $150 in those bonus bets. Again, that's win or lose. Early payout offer in the NHL if your team gains a 3-goal lead, instant payout. In the basketball game tomorrow, if a team goes up by 20, instant payout for you right there. And on Saturdays, because it is a Saturday game, the Slam Dunk Saturday, place qualifying parlay bets totaling $20 or more on Saturday's games, and you get up to 25 in bonus bets. Terms and conditions, of course, apply. And with that breaking news from Bet365, once again, new customers can get 150 in bonus bets when you bet $5. That's win or lose. Sign up, use code PHLY365, deposit 10, and place a bet for $5, $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins or loses. Bonus bets can be used on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary. At Bet365, must be 21 plus and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Time to remember some guys.
Let's do that. Also, go sign up, folks. Diehard Sale still going on. $36. Our summer intro offer, allphly.com. Go sign up to become a Diehard member. $36 right now. It's continuing. Yesterday we told you, I think Derek said it was like 8 hours to go. Well, hey, guess what? It's still going on right now. $36 for our summer intro offer. Become a member at allphly.com to join our community. Get all the great written content from these guys. Rich Hoffman's daily newsletter, as well as we get ready for the NBA draft. And you have it all right there for you, courtesy of these guys on the Sixers side. Eagles, Phillies, Flyers as well. It's all there, allphly.com. Kyle, let's get to some of these guys, and let's start off in the early part, the very, very beginning for Daryl Morey. First draft, Aaron Brooks, 26th overall. Brad Newley, who I didn't know, but he was there, 54th. They selected him. And they also traded for Carl Landry. That was a former Sixer, but had a pretty good career in Houston as well. Made some decent money in the NBA. That was one in 2007. Nick Batum, 25th overall in 2008. Marty Lunin.
We're not counting him because he traded him for Joey Dorsey.
That was a draft night trade too.
Yes, it was. Yeah. Yes, it was.
I don't count anybody who was
trade.
traded on draft night as a Morey draft pick. I count the guys that were acquired via that trade. So
via the trade.
In that one, it's Joey
Because
Dorsey
if he liked
and Dante
Nick Batum
Green.
that much, he wouldn't have traded him
Correct.
for Joey Dorsey.
He does not get credit for drafting Batum and immediately trading him for much worse players with shorter careers.
But he selected him and moved him. He was the 25th pick. He went to Portland as part of that 3-team deal with Sacramento. Dante Green from Syracuse, and you said Joey Dorsey also.
So let me spin back to 2007 for a second.
Yeah.
Aaron Brooks, good player, guy who I think outshot the probably expected value in that range.
For sure.
Now, the next 5 picks, which is what I looked at as I went back through all these, Aaron Aflalo is the next pick, and you probably say you would rather have his career over Aaron Brooks, but I think Aflalo was a little overrated. Tiago Splitter right after him. Orlando Tucker, a Finnish guy named Koponen, who I completely blanked on. And then Carl Landry
On the
was,
Sixers
Yeah, he
briefly?
was.
I believe he was on the
Yep.
Sixers, but I don't remember his first name. So you're not really upset about that
No, and I
string
do
of
think
picks
like
there?
it's one thing when we talk about like a top 5 pick. I think it makes a lot of sense to look at like the next 3 or 4 or 5 that are taken immediately after. When you're talking about like the 28th pick, I think
It
that's
is a lot
probably a
tougher
little
to
bit
be like,
unrealistic. It's
yeah.
just, did you get somebody who actually stuck in the league? And that's the way I view like 25 on in the draft. Really.
Yeah, but when you got 2 at 24 and 26 and Siakam goes right there, it kind of ticks you off.
No, that's
Well, thankfully, Daryl Morey wasn't in charge of that.
No,
decision,
not
so.
him on that one. No, that one, we always grow back to that one. But yeah, the Aaron Brooks one, because you know what's funny too about that one, Kyle? Because he eventually became the starter for the Houston Rockets. And he was pretty darn good, man, where he could score that basketball, Derek. And he was one of those smaller guards that could just flat out fill it up. Yes, he can get caught in those switches defensively and all, but when he came down, his speed, his quickness to get to the basket and finish with the runners, the floaters, the layup package that he did have, but also being able to hit, as you talked about with him, Daryl Morey liking guys who can shoot threes, he could score the basketball even from beyond the three-point line.
And for him, he's the example, the early example of, well, maybe he's small or smaller, right? He didn't have prototype size, Aaron Brooks, in terms of the height, but he was an ultra productive college player, good pretty much across the board stats, was a good playmaker, good shooter, all that. So you say, well, this guy's just good at basketball. And if he's good at basketball he would have been 21, 22, I think at the time as a fourth-year senior, he'll probably continue to be good and get better. And I think that ended up being true because a lot of times you pick a guy at 26, they don't become a starting point guard. So then 2008, Joey Dorsey and Dante Green, not much to speak of.
Another Oregon guy, though. He likes Oregon.
And he did like Oregon at the
Dorsey.
time. And that was something that I noticed, and we were talking about before the show, for collegiate prospects. Very few, maybe more recently, right? Like Paul Reed out of DePaul is a smaller school, but a lot of big school, major conference draft picks. There are not a lot of guys that are like, oh, the Charles Bassey from, where was he? Western Kentucky, right? Was another example. But by and large, it's like Oregon, Kentucky, Kansas, UConn, Tennessee, Wisconsin, and they're Duke, in Jared McCain's case, Kentucky again with Justin Edwards. 2010, another example of Patrick Patterson, played at Kentucky.
Yep.
Like he just generally has said, I want productive players from big time programs or bigger programs and guys who are on, real teams, right? This is not just someone putting up 25 points a game against our version in today's day and age of plumbers that you would say back in the 60s or whatever.
All right, JJ, calm down.
But so 2010, Patrick Patterson.
Yeah.
Next 5. Where was he taken? Was that
Patterson was
which
like
pick?
14.
I want to say he was like very end of the lottery.
14.
Or,
Yeah, 14.
So 14th, next 5 picks in that class, Larry Sanders, Luke Babbitt, Kevin Seraphin, Eric Bledsoe, Avery Bradley.
It's really the Bledsoe-Bradley part that...
And
if
like
Sanders
I was
didn't-
never a big Avery Bradley guy. Bledsoe, I think, certainly outperformed it. It's a difference of, I think Bledsoe was a good but flawed starter. Whereas Patterson was more of the good and reliable role player that
Right.
just kind of bounced around. And that's an interesting philosophy to try to talk through during this process. Would you rather have, generally in the draft, a guy who's got a chance to be a higher end player that is also harder to work around because they need the ball in their hands or they play a certain way? Or would you rather have like Patrick Patterson could just be plugged into a team for a while and it was like, you don't really have to think a whole lot about it.
I had liked the Sanders thing because, look, I mean, those 2 years before everything just started to spiral out of control for him, it wasn't even really a spiral out of control. He just happened to like something at the time where it's not as frowned upon right now anymore in the league. But those 2 years in Milwaukee where it was like, wait a minute, this guy, because of the length, the athleticism, he wasn't necessarily a scorer, but the offensive rebounding and all that stuff as a big man, he was a really valuable player that would seem like a quote unquote Daryl Morey kind of guy on a basketball team because of all that stuff, can run the floor, rim run, where he can also block shots. And even though he was a thinner guy in terms of his build, he still seemed like he could hold up in the NBA. And again, it just so happened that he liked what he liked and,
Just ahead of his time.
He was ahead of his time. He should team up with some of those other guys and start. I think he actually did with that. But I liked him as a player. So those are some good names right there behind.
Well, and so Larry Sanders, I think I imagine he was on the short list for Daryl at the time. So. Although he played at VCU, VCU was on the higher end and still is on the higher end of like the smaller conference or less prestige.
But Shaka Smart
programs
built them up at that point.
I want to say it was Anthony Grant was the coach when Sanders was there. I'd have to double check
maybe it was
on
Grant,
that.
But that's a good call.
We're talking about 2010 VCU. I remember Eric Maynor from back in those days as well.
Eric Maynor was tough.
So Sanders, I think, is probably a good example of more of the big men that Daryl tends to draft, even though he did not draft him. Daryl has been a tools guy. Clint Capella is a great example
one of his
that.
Big successes is coming up in one of these drafts up here. And where was Clint? He was real late, right? He was 20. Yeah.
Somewhere in the late 20s. But Adem is another. He's more tools and motor than he is. Daryl has basically never taken a stretch big. It has always been athletes, wingspans, rebounding. Like those have been his. And I think that's where a trend starts to emerge. If you were to say, hey, they're not looking at these guards and wings. Daryl wants a prototypical center. He wants to draft a big man. I think if you look at his history, you would say Malawach is the guy you'd look at much sooner than a Derek Queen, right? Where Derek Queen maybe has the projectable and expandable offensive skill set, but Daryl, as he has, built out teams, has generally leaned toward that.
So you're saying my Danny Wolf dreams are dead?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, look, if Danny Wolf fell to the back of the first, I think then we could go back down the road of, Daryl likes the consensus guys who fall. So, but Larry Sanders is a name that I think is
Anthony Grant was at that time.
It was
Anthony Grant.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
I mean, they've had some guys they had good coaches there at that program for quite a bit.
Between he and Shaka Smart, it was really good. But no, and even so, to your point about the big men, don't forget about when you do get to that 35th pick, since we talked about them more recently, that whether it's Kalkbrenner, Yang that we discussed, the kid from Penn State.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hedva bringing up a good point that I wrote about Hanson Yang 2 days ago, yesterday. I don't remember when I published. Doesn't matter. Go to allphly.com. It's right there. You can read about Hanson Yang.
Yep.
He is very much not like a rim running explosive center. He is a back to the basket.
He's big.
He's huge, 7'2", really good size and strength, but he is plodding. He is slow. He's not going to elevate. It does not theoretically fit a Daryl Morey archetype.
Of the three, though, that we just named from Yang, would you say Penn State, how you pronounce his name? Niederhauser and Kalkbrenner. If you had to lean today, we're May 30th, of course, but based on that, where would you lean?
I probably have to watch a little more of Niederhauser, but probably Kalkbrenner, in part just because I haven't watched a whole lot of.
How about you?
I would probably guess Kalkbrenner because, again, big, excellent stat indicators, right? Like huge block percentage, good rebounder, like that all says, that's more of a Morey type of second round guy.
But the intrigue because of the the Bassey pick would make me also think about the Penn State kid of a similar type of kid that can get up and down the floor that maybe fills that role for that pick. Even Paul Reed at 58, and you think about something like that. That's way later, but still that type of big man where he's more of a hybrid. But this kid from Penn State is no doubt a center, and that's it. So let's go to the next one. Kyle, you went to
2011,
2010s. Let's go to 2011 because this was a fun one. Marcus Morris at
Marcus
14.
Morris moment of the show.
That's the Marcus Morris moment of the day. Marcus Morris at 14.
We will not speak of who went next.
Well, here's our first time where we had to say, boy, there was definitely a guy there that had a way better career. And look, Marcus Morris, good NBA player. You didn't take somebody that...
Marcus Morris as a 14th pick is a good pick. Marcus Morris ahead of Kawhi Leonard is not a good pick.
And also Marcus Morris, Kansas Marcus Morris, you're like, all right, I got it.
Right. So the Morris brothers were highly recruited out of high school. They had a bunch of options on the table. Devon reminded us before the show, they, I think, initially committed to Memphis.
Yep.
Then ended up going to Kansas. And I completely memory hold that they played 3 years at Kansas. I, for some reason, thought it was 2 years. Third year, they had, very good individual seasons. I want to say they were both All-Americans. I know Marcus was. I don't remember if Markieff was an All-American.
I remember when they were coming out of school that the conversation was Markieff is going to be the better of the two.
Yeah.
Yes,
because
that was the consensus.
I liked Markieff because I thought he projected as a better defender.
Yeah.
But
Marcus actually ended up being the better defender, I think, over time.
Yep.
So Marcus Morris, the next 5 picks, and that was at pick either 12 or 14.
14 for Marcus. Yep.
So next picks after Marcus Morris, Kawhi Leonard. So you got to hand it to the Spurs on that one, unfortunately.
Bad job Pacers because they traded him.
Was bad job by the Pacers. Nick Vucevic.
For
Amon Shumpert, Chris Singleton.
George Hill, right?
George Hill, yeah.
And, drum roll please, Tobias Harris.
Oh, Tennessee Tobias.
So 3 good fours who were taken in that group. Well, Kawhi then became, I think, more of a true 3, right? But three good college fours, one of whom just happened to become a Hall of Fame winner. So, it's a little bit unfortunate on that one.
And then he only spent 1 season with the Rockets because one and a half. I think Marcus at one point was sent down to the G League. He was ticked off about that. It didn't work out. He was eventually traded to Phoenix, teaming up with his brother, as we know, in Phoenix. And that's how that one played out for Marcus Morris. But yeah, the Kawhi Leonard one right there, that's a hurt one.
Yeah.
That's a hurt.
And that's one, so as I brought up the front court guys, right? Kawhi's thing coming out of school was this guy's an elite rebounder, interior player.
Board man gets paid.
Exactly. The board man gets paid slogan that he built his work ethic off of, essentially. The shot, we had no idea he was going to be as good of a shooter as he was. And so if you're someone who is under the impression, Daryl's only looking at stats, right? Like the stat indicators. That's not the case here, right? Because Kawhi had the underlying, this guy's an elite rebounder, athletic tools suggest that he's got a lot of upside, and you have to project the shot a little bit, whereas I think Marcus Morris was more of the proven scorer, guy with a better reputation there. Oops. Maybe you should have trusted the numbers on that one.
So I'm looking at their roster for 11-12, the Houston Rockets. And the roster, of course, the rookie Marcus Morris is there. Chandler Parsons, who we didn't get to yet, which was a good pick, rookie for them. Patrick Patterson the year before at that forward position. Luis Scola, Terrence Williams. Remember Terrence Williams from Louisville? He was only in year 2. So he was a projected guy.
And Scola was drafted like a decade before. He was a rookie, but that was like a decade
4-year experience at that point. Chase Budinger from Arizona. He was in year 2. Marcus Camby, Sam Dallenberg, Goran Dragic, Johnny Flynn, Courtney Fortson, Jordan Hill, Courtney Lee, Kyle Lowry.
This is a true remember some guys segment.
Kevin Martin also on that roster. So Kawhi Leonard would certainly fit on that roster. The Chase Budinger thing, it was there. you don't not take Kawhi Leonard because of that. I'm sure they had their reasons. Chandler Parsons was a later first-round pick for them. Yeah, that was he could fit on that roster somewhere.
It was a miss.
But again, guy who's not at necessarily a prestige school and a big-time conference, right? That's San Diego State, which they have a good program historically, but it is, I would not put it in the same, certainly the conference is weaker.
Not Kansas, Duke.
No.
Yeah.
So that could be an example of, hey, pay a little more attention to the non-prestige programs.
Yeah. So just to round out the draft, there were some trades. To Kyle's point, Nico Mirčić was drafted but traded. And Chandler Parsons was 38th in the second round.
And that's a big hit.
Out of Florida.
Yep. Like if you look, a lot of times I like to look at, like, if you draft someone and there's nobody drafted after them that was a better player, that's a freaking home run. It's real hard to have, even in Chandler Parsons' case, 22 picks left and get the best player out of those 20.
That's an insanely good
They got the second
pick.
best player because Isaiah Thomas went 60th. But even still, that was a real good selection when there really wasn't a whole lot of good options taken around him.
Yeah.
Unfortunate that Parsons suffered that bad injury because he was very good there for a while.
Yeah, got that big money too from Dallas. Was able to parlay that into some pretty good money.
Was he the one that Daryl and Cuban kind of sniped at each other? And
I believe
Daryl was
yeah.
like, the good GM is the one who drafts him, not overpays him, or something like that. He paraphrased like that.
Gotcha.
That sounds like Daryl and Cuban. So
again, I'm paraphrasing and I might be misremembering, but I'm pretty sure there was some sniping there.
All right, we'll stop at 11. We'll move on to a few more here shortly, but we're going to take a quick break. We pause, we come back. We'll get to some more from 2012 on up into the Philadelphia 76ers. We're trying to pick his brain a little bit here and trying to figure out what Daryl Morey
and mostly
likes.
remember some guys.
And remember some guys, too.
We're
It's
just a
always
bunch of
good.
people sitting around talking about guys, sports players.
Hey, all of you, too.
It's Friday, baby.
You're seeing some names. I see Jada Jungle has one that we're going to talk about here shortly. We'll get to them right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast.
All right, guys. Well, once again, we have to tell you about Empire Today because just like your favorite team needs a home court advantage, your home needs a home floor advantage, and Empire Today can help you get it. Empire Today has flooring experts, dedicated flooring professionals who focus on flooring every single day. We've all been to some of those big box stores, and while they might have a flooring department, the person actually helping you with flooring may have been doing sinks yesterday and could be stocking light bulbs tomorrow. Empire Today lives and breathes flooring, and they will be with you every step of the way. Their flooring experts bring the showroom right to your home, so you pick the right flooring and the right colors for your space, so you can see how it looks with your furniture and in your house. You get precise measurements taken and have all of your questions answered, so there are no surprises. With Empire Today, you get clear, upfront, and all-inclusive pricing. Plus, you can schedule installation as soon as the next day. Schedule a free in-home estimate today because some things are just better at home. PHLY listeners can receive a $350 discount when using promo code PHLY. You heard that right, a $350 discount with code PHLY. Restrictions apply. Visit empiretoday.com/PHLY for full details.
And guys, the low prices are blooming. Spring into savings at Ashley, where you can save up to 50% off of living rooms, bedrooms, and dining room furniture. Have it all delivered for free. Plus, you can get long-term, no-interest financing, save on top-brand mattresses, get free delivery, setup, and removal. I say it every time. I'm going to say it again. That free setup, removal, and delivery is absolutely priceless, especially if you live in the city where a lot of those homes, narrow stairwells, you're trying to, angle things a certain way. You don't want to knock that picture of grandma off the wall. Ashley will take care of all of that for you, but please don't wait. Spring into savings now at Ashley, South Jersey, and Philadelphia. Financing with approved credit, minimum purchase required. Some exclusions may apply. See store for complete details. Visit ashleyfurniture.com for more information.
Got to carry that furniture up the narrow stairway.
Listen, man, I actually, this is a side conversation real quick. Are you in the age bracket now? Do you feel you're in the age bracket now that you will no longer help someone move?
Yeah, I'm done.
I crossed that once we moved into our current house, which my wife and I did it all ourselves, which was, I wouldn't advise that. I said, this is the last time I help anybody move, including us. Somebody else is doing it for us. I'm too old now. I'm in my mid 30s. It's not good enough to buy me a case of beer or take me out to lunch to say, hey, can you help me move stuff around? And thankfully my friends have all decided, the same for them. So we don't do that anymore.
I can be guilted very easily. So like if somebody asks, I'd probably feel guilty. I'm not sure I would offer per se, but I would certainly do it if they asked. I'm definitely at the age though where I'm not asking anyone to help me move. Like if I can't do it myself, I am paying a professional to do it.
100%.
I will not burden you with trying to help me move.
100%. And even like for my daughters. Yeah. Let's find this number and call it.
Hey, you see the Ben the Mover guy,
Right,
that sign I see everywhere in Philly?
Yep.
Free promo for
There
him.
you
But
go.
you see any of these mover companies around the city?
We got it covered.
I can look up that cell phone number and get a quote from them. And
I am not doing that anymore, man. I've had more than my fair share of those, and I'm not doing that. All right, so you're hearing some of these names that we like to go back on and just kind of revisit. We're college basketball fans. We remember them from their college careers. They had longer college careers for a lot of them where we could follow it, and they get to the pros. Well, if you were a little surprised on some of these players, don't be for the 2025 draft, because we got a 2025 draft guide on our allphly.com website, the Diehard Draft Guide, your ultimate NBA draft resource. And that is courtesy of Will Gottlieb of CHGO and our guy, Derek Bodner. They put together the 2025 Diehard Draft Guide. Is your all-access pass to the most in-depth scouting reports, expert analysis, and exclusive insights from ALLCITY draft experts, Will Gottlieb and Derek Bodner. You must be a member. We told you about the $36 summer intro offer. Sign up to take advantage of all the things that we've been discussing, including preparing for the upcoming NBA draft, where the Sixers now currently hold the number 3 overall pick and the 35th overall pick, which is at the top of the second round. If you're curious about some of those players, Derek and Will have compiled that list and the order for their big board of those players, and you won't be surprised if you hear a name called, because you're read up on it on our Diehard Draft Guide. Make sure you go sign up at AllCity at allphly.com for our AllCity Draft Guide as well. All right, let's get to moving, because we still have a few more years to run through here. Let's go to 2012. You
busy
mentioned
year.
Jeremy Lamb, 12th. So this is his highest. Before the Sixers' 3rd overall
Highest pick he's ever
this
had,
year,
right?
that was the highest pick of his career. Daryl Morey, Jeremy Lamb from UConn, Royce White, 16th overall from Iowa State, and Terrence Jones, 18th from Kentucky. Man, that's 12, 16, and 18. Something like we were talking. Who was it? You were talking about the Nets saying, I don't think they're going to keep 4 picks and want to have 4 rookies on their roster. That's a decent draft, and you got 3 decent names out of that one. The careers maybe not so much, but the names were some good names at that point.
So the one I want to focus on, we'll talk about both of these guys.
There is sort of like an honorable mention here, and that's Thomas Robinson, because they traded for him like halfway through his rookie season.
That's
when
right.
you do that, like your part of your reasoning for that trade is your evaluation.
Yes.
So I'm not sure if you can technically include him, but he's kind of like an honorable mention to it, and he went 5th in that draft.
So Jeremy Lamb, I want to focus on for a second, because I think this is where you see something we saw come up with Jaden Springer later. I think taking Jeremy Lamb at 12, while it was at least somewhat about player, skill set, projectability, some of the reason that you're taking him is retaining the trade value of that pick into the future, right? Because the next 5 picks, Kendall Marshall, upperclassman with, questionable athleticism, John Henson, good and, good tools, big at the time, but had some question marks. Maurice Harkless, he would have been another.
How could you be?
It would have been another upside guy. Royce White, who we'll also get to here, and Tyler Zeller. And Jeremy Lamb stands out there as he was a sophomore player. He had been a freshman sidekick next to Kemba Walker when they won the title at UConn, and then stayed for a sophomore year, got to be more of the featured player, put up good numbers. The 3-point numbers came down a little bit, but a lot of projectable stuff, right? Like good scorer, good wingspan and athleticism. There were defensive questions, but it was at least like we can project him as a defender potentially. And it was a guy where you say, compared to a bunch of other guys in the immediate range afterward, if you're potentially making a trade, and this was the offseason where they made the James Harden trade, Jeremy Lamb is a guy who makes sense to, you take him here both because you like him and because you can probably flip him. and they do end up flipping him. Now, later on, to square this circle, Jaden Springer is the guy the Sixers taken. Was that 21, I believe?
Jaden
2021?
Let me check.
Oh, yeah. It was 28th pick, but 2021.
21.
Yeah. I'm saying the year, 2021. So I've reported this on the show before. I've talked about it before. The calculus, my understanding at the time was they took Springer over someone like Jared Butler, who, it's similar type of player, a guard who didn't have overwhelming size, because Jaden was much younger and would theoretically retain trade value over time. Jared Butler ends up on the roster anyway, eventually, but they were able to flip Jaden despite having a disappointing career for some value before he was out of here, whereas Butler has bounced around, was a two-way player, all that. And so I would keep that in mind. I've talked a lot about the potential to take Ace on draft night, and not necessarily just because they value him at number 3, because Ace, because of the tools, because he's very young, he is one of the youngest players in the class. If they were to try to make a future trade that they don't have lined up on draft night, I think there's a good case that he will retain his value the longest in Philadelphia. Who knows, though?
Right. No, it's a fair point. And Lamb was like you said, a pretty, I don't want to say key part, but he was certainly a significant part of that Harden trade. I think retaining trade value is certainly something that Daryl values. Obviously, if you draft someone like VJ, even though I think everyone across the league values his work ethic and all that stuff, if he's only playing 15, 20 minutes per night, who knows how that will impact his trade value. I don't think it would lose quickly, but it's always something to consider.
Yeah. Now, Royce White.
Yeah, the Royce White thing.
Yeah.
Get to that one.
He couldn't play basketball. I mean, look, I think it fits a view Daryl has of like, this was a multi-skilled player.
He was like a 5 assists a game guy at Iowa
who
State.
The league was undervaluing because of his anxiety problems, and who, if he figured it out, he could outshoot his draft slot. I think that probably fits Daryl Morey's MO a little bit. He just completely missed on the calculus of whether or not he would be able to overcome his anxiety, and frankly, he just couldn't travel with the team. And I think he played, like 3 games? Man, that was with the Sixers, right?
Yep. And taking the swing, because you did have those 3 picks right there from 12 to 18. Figure you could take a swing on one.
That's the one where you say, hey, we can take a risk here and say if we can figure out the, airplane thing, which is just
still bizarre.
I don't mean to laugh at someone having anxiety, but it's also like, it is a funny concept, it's just like
still bizarre.
Anyway. No, the 3 games he played with the Kings. I apologize about that.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. So between Lamb is the prototype size upside guy, White is upside in just like really productive player, and then Terrence Jones, I think, was more of this is a proven commodity player, right? Like, we have pretty high confidence that he'll be a productive player, and he was a productive player for a stretch there in Houston. Was a pretty good player there for them.
Yeah, you talk about the tools that he had as a guy that's like 6'8", 6'9", can dribble. The shooting wasn't all that great, but it was more of he can dribble, he can pass, he has decent size, so you can't catch him too much on the defensive end where he's a negative. And this guy can play. He came from the program that he did, to your point of these big programs that Daryl Morey maybe focuses on. That was one that I thought he was going to play out much better than he eventually did. But when you go back and you look at the draft, outside of the top name, Anthony Davis, Bradley Beal because of the All-Stars, Damian Lillard, Harrison Barnes, Andre Drummond for what he did in Detroit.
There wasn't a ton, though.
There wasn't a lot.
From 12 on, like you're talking about.
Evan Fournier has had a good career.
Yep.
After that, you have to go to the second round with Draymond Green, Jay Crowder, and Chris Middleton. That's all that really hit in that draft, and those were the second round picks. So
really everything after, I will politely say Terrence Ross and Andre Drummond were hits at 8 and 9.
Well, Drummond was an all-star,
Yep.
So
yep. Everything after that was just real hit or miss, and mostly miss.
Yeah. Yep. All right.
Really bad year to have 3 first-round picks, by the way.
Let's move on to the next year. We went from 2013. Isaiah Cannon, 34th overall, Sixers legend, drafted by Daryl Morey, 34th overall.
NBA player
Good
at
pick.
the top of the second round.
Yeah.
So and I think that is where you say, he wasn't anything special. But once you get to the second round, if you draft an NBA player, to me, by definition, that was a good pick.
Yeah. Yep. So that was a good pick. 2014.
Also had Robert Covington as an undrafted free agent that
Undrafted.
year.
All right. 2015, Sam Decker. No, 2014, Clint Capella, 25th overall.
Home run.
And
Absolute home run.
Absolute home run. Nick Johnson. Was that Nick Johnson from Arizona? I don't remember that one, but that was 42nd overall. Clint Capella, though, the home run at 25.
Yep. Next 5 picks in that class, PJ Hairston, Bogdan Bogdanovic, so a very good player, CJ Wilcox, Josh Hustis, and Kyle Anderson.
Okay.
So slow-mo, good.
Yeah.
Bogdan, good to very good.
Yep.
But Capella, I think, best career out of those guys. Like certainly hit the highest peak, I think, as a player. Now, some of that you got to play with James Harden, but this also gets into the territory of his Houston stretch where you probably do take guys that make sense with Harden, right?
Yeah.
You think about fit more, and Clint Capella is an absolute home run on that front.
But you go to the next year, same thing. Sam Decker, stretch 3-4 type of player that's supposed to be able to knock down shots, put the ball on the floor, multi-dimensional there. And then Montrezl Harrell, a guy that at pick number 32, that from Louisville, offensive rebound, can clean up the boards, that type rugged forward.
Very
that
good
you
second
can,
round pick.
Yes, that you can fit
Decker,
there.
not
so much.
No, and really, there wasn't a ton of talent taken around him. I think the 3 you would probably look at, DeLon Wright, but you're not going to pair him next to James Harden.
Bobby Portis.
Bobby Portis is really the one. And then there's also Larry Nance a little later on, but again, not really a good fit next to James Harden. So it's really probably the Bobby Portis one that you ding him on.
2016, Onuaku at 37, and I don't know Zhao Zhu. Okay.
The Chinese big man, right?
I don't remember him much.
He was actually
You don't remember his
guy,
19-game career?
I don't.
He was a guy that I know there were some big time, like deep draft scout Twitter people who were like, he's going to be a top 5 guy in this class type of people. So,
Yeah. 43rd.
I remember the name. I'll tell you that.
Didn't work out. Let's move to
Don't remember the player.
2017. Isaiah Hartenstein at 43.
Really
home
good
run
pick.
Yep.
Really
Now, he didn't stay
good
in
pick.
Houston all that long, but a home run pick for sure.
Dylan Brooks, 45. So
Again,
2 good
really
picks.
good. That's for a second round.
Yeah.
And those picks in the second round.
Yeah.
Those are grand slam type of picks.
And Brooks was traded to Memphis. We know the Memphis career. Now he is in Houston with his current Rockets group at the moment. So 2 really good picks there in the second round for Daryl Morey. 2018, another Sixers legend, 46th overall, DeAnthony Melton.
Again, home run pick. Great player.
2019.
And that was one. DeAnthony Melton was an advanced stats all-star, right? He was created steals,
Huge stock
block
guy.
shots
Yep.
as a guard. And so that's not to say you're going to draft VJ Edgecombe at 3 because you took DeAnthony Melton at, what did you say,
46.
46. But a lot of the same
But we talk about the
indicators.
idea of looking at that for what he did next to Maxey in this one. And remember about DeAnthony Melton at USC too. He missed a year.
Yeah.
I was going to say, he was probably, that sort of fits along with the Royce White, but in a successful way. This is a guy whose circumstances probably dropped his value.
100%.
So I'm going to try to capitalize on
Even that year, he was still projected to be a back-end first-round pick despite not playing because of how talented he was at USC and how it seemed like the interviews and all went okay for him towards the end, having to explain the situation of everything. But that was a really, really good pick. Great value at 46.
And I don't want to do the whole BJ Ace thing today. I'm just bringing this up because Melton is a snapshot of it.
Do you really think Brian Pumper's going to let us get
There's
out
already
of
a
here?
super chat in there, so we'll get to it.
So Melton is an example. If you're a stats heavy person, what they will tell you is that a lot of what they look for is where are you seeing outlier production for the archetype, right? So for smaller players, if they generate steals, if they block a lot of shots, if they rebound well, that shows you that the athletic profile is much better than the average guard and that they are in many ways predisposed to be able to, jump more than another player at the same position at the same size who does not have the same rebounding indicators. I don't necessarily subscribe to that belief, right? Like you got to go player to player, but that's if you're trying to get in like math brain and like, oh, who did the analytics say to take? That's a big thing.
Yeah.
So then it would be centers who can pass, for example.
Right.
So like Jokic, they're the ones that will outperform in the second round or whatever because they bring something that guys in that range don't. So HeadFi, I know, is bringing up Hanson Yang. He's a potential playmaking, do it all type center. So
All right.
that's the stat corner.
Well, do it all as long as you don't care about like pick and roll defense.
Well,
but yeah, I agree.
Do it all on offense.
That's it for the Houston Rockets. No pick in 2019. He moves on to the Sixers in 2020, where he does take home run at 21. Tyrese Maxey, talking about all-star, all-NBA consideration the year he made the all-star team. He's a franchise player here with Joel Embiid and Paul George, of course. He had a bunch of other picks in this one, too, including Isaiah Joe and Paul Reed late in the second.
Very good class.
Yeah, Theo Maledon and Tyler Bay were also two names at 34 and 36 for the Sixers.
Bay was traded in was that the Curry trade? The Curry-Richardson trade, I believe.
Sure.
Let me double
I don't remember.
That's my recollection. I think that pick was part of the trade to Dallas.
Another one, though, you could look at Tyrese Maxey and say, all right, there are 39 people selected after him. Not a single one of them. Arguably, like Desmond Bane has had a great career, but other than that, nobody even close to having the kind of career Tyrese has had. When you have 39 selections left and you're at the 21st pick, being able to get literally the best player with that is a home run with no qualifications.
By the way, we love the cross-racial comps on this show.
100%.
Desmond Bane is the Con Knipple comp that nobody has talked about a whole lot. I think that's a guy you could see as
if
a
you got
model
that,
for him.
that would be pretty good.
I do think Bane has way more off the dribble than
I
Con
do
has
too,
right now.
but I think just since he was like the T-Rex
negative
wingspan,
wings. Yeah, I think he was
and-
actually like a negative wingspan guy. Like he was real.
But
Bay and Josh Richardson to Dallas for Seth Curry. Yep. Good
my
call.
memory isn't completely shot quite yet, so that's a good sign.
Yep. So home run there. Well, I mean, you get three guys, plus you get the Seth Curry piece where you're at least the number one seed. We know what happened later, but he did help you do that, and he was a pretty good pairing.
Now, it would have been nice if like he could have convinced Doc to play him and if he didn't cut Isaiah Joe as a luxury tax casualty, but he did find talent with the 46th pick.
And this is also
49.
where
49th. Apologies.
there's a little more of this publicly available now, or it's at least easier to find now, like consensus big boards. When he got to Philadelphia, Daryl has pretty consistently, guys fall, I'm going to take them, right? So Maxey, I believe, what pre-draft was 13th.
Yeah. I remember Rich and I didn't even cover him because like there's no way he's falling.
13th, he goes at 21. Isaiah Joe was 44th to take him at 49. So that's not a big. Paul Reed, pre-draft, 38. They get him at 58. So like that first class was very much like, and I think some of this is driven by the COVID season, right? Because you didn't get an NCAA tournament.
Yep,
and so
couldn't
it's
really
a smaller
talk to 'em.
sample size. And so some of it is you go in and you say, well, we didn't get to see as much of these guys. So some of our knowledge that we're bringing in from high school and our priors before their freshman seasons or before their seasons we just watched probably matters a lot more to us than maybe previous drafts.
That's right, Tyrese Maxey. Hit that like button, everybody, while we're still here hanging out with you. Tyrese Maxey is telling you to hit that like button. Good hit right there as far as the like button on Daryl Morey selecting Tyrese Maxey at number 21. We're going to overtime, so we're going to tell you that right now. AllPHLY.com to finish. Everybody on the TV side, we thank you. We appreciate your joining us all week long here on the show. If you want to continue to watch, head on over to AllPHLY.com. 2021, Jared Springer, 28th. Petrusev? Petrusev.
I thought it was
Petrusev?
Petrusev.
Philip with an
Philip
F.
It's
with an F at 50, and Charles Bassey 53 for Daryl Morey. So Bassey's still in the league. He's over there with San Antonio.
Bassey was fine.
It's a good pick.
Yeah.
53, yeah.
The Springer, did you mention, Hedva, you might want to like cover your ears for this because Santi went 2 picks later, and that's probably the one that
He
really
went
tough
30s?
one.
Yeah. Okay.
And then Herb Jones in the second round.
Yeah,
too.
right. Yeah. So
No, I mean Springer didn't work out.
Oh, we also didn't talk about really in 2011. Monte Eunice saw that much. That was a swing and a miss on the international front.
yeah.
Donuts, baby.
Was that a trade though?
That was a trade, yes. I don't remember what trade he was a part of.
Yeah, I forgot
But the next, that was, I think Kenneth Farid was in that
Yeah.
range. That's the only reason I remember that one.
Kenneth Farid.
Another small school guy.
Nice run.
Missed on.
Nice run. 2022 traded David Roddy, who was a 23rd pick by the Sixers, with Danny Green to Memphis to bring DeAnthony Melton to Philadelphia. And that was 2022.
Yes, it was.
Yep. And no picks in 23, as we know. And last
Well,
year.
we did have that was the Turk and
was that?
Ricky year, right?
That was
Second round.
Well, that was
Second
the
round.
undrafted.
Yeah.
Undrafted.
Were they undrafted?
They were undrafted.
I thought Ricky was a late second round pick. I
No.
might be wrong. Okay, you're right. Right.
Undrafted. And Jared McCain, Adembona a year ago.
So, like, by and large,
Yeah, you're right. What am I thinking?
very good track record. And across pretty different contexts, right? Early on in Houston, you're at the end of the Yao Ming, Tracy McGrady, or you're like navigating that. Yao is then done, and it's you're in that little weird in between ground. Houston ownership did not really have the appetite to be a tanking team or a team that takes a real step back. So you're trying to improve the team with those mid-round picks. They hit on enough of those and some of their other moves to consolidate those guys, turn that into Harden. Then you start drafting more on fit. And, you know, as we talked about, Clint Capella, you come to Philadelphia and do what he's done here. Like, I think, and we've said it many times, he's done a very good job over the years. Has not been perfect, but this is one area where I think even the people who are Daryl skeptics, and certainly deserve to be skeptics after the way last season turned out, this is the one area I think he's consistently been very good for this team and across his tenure.
Yes, he has. Yep. Don't forget about 2020. Dakota Mathias to a two-way contract. He had to play next to, who was it, him and Tyrese, where they played, what was it, Dallas? They had 7 men or something like that. And someone had to suit up just because to make sure that they had enough players to play the actual game. What a time, man.
He was the quickest unfollow of any player I've covered. Because he wasn't here that long, but it was definitely like, I'm keeping tabs on what this.
Yeah.
I'm sure he followed, you know, you guys and other members of the media, but I just remember seeing it pop up, and I figured it was like, it's probably a
Agent
like a
or
fan account or
yeah.
whatever. But that was followed me while I was here. Immediate unfollow the second he left the organization. So he had it all organized, man. He must have had his like Sixers list. He's got it up on TweetDeck, and he's like, nope, get rid of these bozos. I'm out of here.
Oh, man.
Dakota
That's
Mathias, man.
Dakota Mathias. I don't know. We got to get on Daryl for one thing. Traded Sean Singletary, Philly legend, to the Suns for DJ Strawberry
Yeah.
at that time.
That was a guy that I feel like I had a moment where
thought-
I was like, I think DJ Strawberry is going to be good. And then you watched more of him, and it was
Yeah. What school did he go to? Was it
Maryland, I believe.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was Maryland. Yeah.
This is really, now we're getting deep into
I was a big
remember
Sean
some
Singletary
guys.
guy, though, man. Sean Singletary
Bag.
back then. Of course, here and then Virginia and get to the pros.
God, DJ
Man.
Strawberry is 39 years old. That is
Wow.
insane to think about.
Wow.
Just the name makes you think that person should be young forever. DJ Strawberry just sounds like a 20-year-old. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody, but it makes sense in my head.
That's good. DJ Strawberry. Good stuff, man. But no, a lot of good names that Daryl Morey selected, undrafted, picked up, whether it was Ricky and Justin Edwards, some of the guys in Houston. Going through it all, folks, I hope it kind of helped you all.
So what is,
out
Devon, I think
something?
Derek and I did our soliloquy to open the show. What was your takeaway going through the list of names and like who he took versus who was there and like in your head, who is a Daryl Morey guy, or like what does a Daryl Morey guy look like?
Yeah, it did seem like, of course, the versatility. Number one, playing with James Harden in Houston, that was clear. It was his. You can even go back to some of the moves that he made as far as trades, where it was or not even trades, but also Ryan Anderson, getting a shooter like that to spread the floor.
True stretch four.
Yeah,
at the time.
where it wasn't working before in his previous spot. When he got to Houston, you're like, wait a minute, okay, I see Daryl hit on this one. I get the idea. The other scoring with Aaron Brooks, just having a guy, he wanted to play different than everybody else in the NBA, and he hit on it, of course, with the James Harden piece. But then even looking at Luka right now, to the James Harden conversation, is having that rim running type of big man who he may not get his own, but my guy who has the ball the most, he can get him. So a lob threat there with that. So it just felt like he did want players, even now that we talk about where he's mentioned it this summer, younger players with athleticism and length. That's what he wants. Versatile forwards that can play multiple positions with some length there. And that's what I took out of it. Even though we had the Aaron Brooks and DeAnthony Melton, but DeAnthony Melton, again, with the profile was he can do a lot of stuff. He's smaller, but that wingspan makes up for a lot of ground that he has to cover overall. And that's what I kind of took out of it. Just having versatile players that can do a lot of different things, but also that is led by a feature player. It's different here than what it was in Houston, but that feature player surrounding them with the right pieces. And while he has put together one. They were a number one seed in the Eastern Conference. Whatever it was the year was, they were the number one seed, and they should have got to the Eastern Conference Finals. They didn't, but he put together
We've
that
had
team.
the Hawks series come up way too often recently, man.
Yeah. So for that one, to your other point of drafting players with potential value later, where Jaden Springer, we know he moved on him pretty quickly after he felt like he could still get some value from Boston with that one. But yeah, man, he's put together some really good teams. And hell, last summer, I thought he put together a top 3 team in the Eastern Conference again by trading for, by assigning Paul George, keeping Tyrese Maxey at that extension, and doing all the other things that he did, taking advantage of an opportunity with Kelly Oubre a couple of years ago where I'm sitting at home watching you guys explain it and I'm agreeing with you, but he's a player that has bought into his role. So even with some of the other players, to your point, even in the drafts, like Melton, he knew what his role was. When he got to Memphis, he knew exactly who he was next to those players, especially next to someone like Ja Morant. He knew what his role was here in Philadelphia next to Maxey and Harden and Embiid. He understood who he was. And getting those types of players that understand who they are in their roles for the team, that just simply helps in driving winning. So if he can continue to do that, especially with this one, man, the number 3 pick, it's going to be scrutinized no matter what. If you take VJ Edgecombe and pass up on Ace Bailey, until we see them on the floor, it's going to be scrutinized. If you take Ace Bailey and not
whoever you take it's a top 3 pick.
Yes.
So there is no escaping.
Even before the
you've
basketball
never been under the
bounces.
microscope like this for a draft pick in your career.
Yeah.
And same with the rest of the front office, or most of the front office, I should say.
But if the track record is right of identifying a rookie and saying that rookie can play, while it's a higher pick, he has at least shown that he knows what the talent looks like at that value of the pick.
I want to ask a follow-up question to both of you. I know we're already in overtime and it's Friday, but we're here and we're doing the show.
Happy Friday, y'all.
As well. Gun to your head, take out the big boards, take out trading the guy. Who do you think is the most Daryl Morey guy they could take it through? Like, if just strip everything else away, who is the player, if we assume Flag is 1 and Harper is 2, who is the guy that visually pops in your head?
So,
you want me to go first?
I think you brought up a good point, though, because I think what a Daryl Morey draft prospect looks like when you don't have a guy is different than a Daryl Morey prospect when you have the guy. Like when you don't have a guy, you see him do stuff like Jeremy Lamb, where you're worried about not necessarily building a team around the player that you draft, but accumulating players whose value increases over time, so that then you can package them in a move when you're ready to pounce. A lot of this comes down to, does Daryl Morey still, in his heart of hearts, believe he has a guy to build around? Whether that's Joel Embiid with the injuries, or whether that's Tyrese Maxey with his limitations as a number 1 option. If he does, then I think he could take a different approach than if he doesn't. And I don't know his state on that. I think all of us sitting here would be like, you've got to get a guy that you believe can either maintain value or grow into that guy because you don't trust Joel Embiid because Tyrese Maxey has limitations. But I don't know exactly what Daryl thinks. That being said, I don't see... It's tough because it does run counter. And it's also tough because he's never drafted third. Like he's never... almost all of these picks are exclusively outside of the lottery, much less a top 5 pick.
That's what. Listen, no one's being held to this. I
got my answer, man. I'm just waiting for you.
I don't think it's Ace Bailey. I would go VJ as a Daryl.
I was gonna say VJ. If I had to sit here today, I would say VJ. If we take about the trade part of it that you just explained, and creating that value for later years, I would say it's VJ. And also because if he does have if he still believes that he has a guy and he's keeping these three together, VJ seems like the one that slot him right in. And the scoring will come from McCain maybe and Quentin Grimes maybe as the guys coming off the bench or as that other starter. And VJ Edgecombe is my choice right here.
That being said, if he truly in his heart of hearts believes in Joel Embiid, I could see Khan. I could see him looking at Khan and thinking he's a great fit.
I'm going to throw a curveball.
If this was at this time, you're going to go say
I'm going to throw a curveball.
Please say it.
Go ahead.
Trey Johnson.
That was my other one.
Because as we go back through this list of names, right? One of the things that I was in on was...
You value shooting a lot from guards.
Value shooting a lot at the position, but also big school, big conference, big production, right? Like this
SEC
is,
Rookie
again,
of the Year.
We have harped on this over and over, but it's worth doing it again. This kid put up 20 points a game on great three-point efficiency, not great overall efficiency, but great shooting. Like maybe the skill in the draft is Trey Johnson's pull-up shooting and movement shooting. In the toughest conference in college basketball, by far, one of the toughest college basketball seasons for a conference in like 15 to 20 years. And I think when you look at some of the underlying stuff and say, I can see some playmaking flashes. I see this kid is maybe a better passer than stats showed, or maybe even the tape showed at times. The athletic testing was very good. The tools, very good. Like, I get it. I'm the one who wrote the big scout report, and I've been on the show saying, God, I hate watching this kid defend, right? Like the lack of rebounding, all that. And the lack of rebounding, I think, is where this veers off from Daryl. But there are a lot of ingredients of this kid can be a big-time player, and you don't think as much about fit. You don't think, and that's, Derek brought up an important point. If you do think you have the foundational guy still, that stuff creeps in more as you make this eval. But if you're saying like, hey, I really got to swing for the fences here, this is a kid who might be able to be like a 25 to 30 point per game scorer, who has unlimited range, who can play on and off the ball, who's got untapped playmaking potential. Like, I don't think that would be all that off script compared to what his history is. Do I think he's the most likely pick? No, but I would not discount him. And then add on to that, we've heard from Gavoni, Sam Vecini, a bunch of the draft guys who I think all of us, respect and trust. Wasserman. Trey Johnson's also gotten a lot of really good reviews for work ethic, character, interviews, like all the stuff in the pre-draft process. So as we talk about Maxey and McCain and some of these other guys who that was some of the stuff that really helped them and has helped them get to, levels that maybe other people didn't think they get to, something to keep in mind.
And he's 6'6", not 6'2", 6'3", like those.
Right. 6'11" wingspan too. Yeah.
And a truly awful defender.
Yeah,
no, the whole point.
I get it.
The whole point of the size and the wingspan is the defend. No, it's a good point, and it's interesting because Trey hasn't been really rumored to the Sixers at all.
He's one of the few guys that has not.
I think it was ESPN today, even brought up Khan possibly being didn't mock him to, but like you could, yeah. But I don't know if that's a good thing in that Daryl's keeping it quiet if it is theoretically Trey.
Not anymore.
Or if it's a bad thing because McCain was the guy mocked at the Sixers all spring and he ended up being the pick. It is interesting that nobody has really brought up Trey to the Sixers.
If you want to hear a little bit more on Trey Johnson, go to our YouTube page and go to the shorts and check out the video that I put together for this conversation.
And I have a very long story on Trey on allphly.com, so you can also read that.
So you can
get
read
in
it
on our Diehard sale.
You can read it, get in on the Diehard sale. You can go to our YouTube page and go to the short of me talking about Trey Johnson and why he should be in the chat of what Kyle just laid out and why he would be a choice for Daryl Morey in the front office and the 76ers. Pick him at 3, man. That'd get it going.
Oh, we got some
I
good
asked
debates.
you that when I said strip away a lot of the other stuff, and they won't do that, right? They're not. If they take, whether it's Ace, whether it's VJ, you do consider trade value. You do consider fit. You do consider the Joel Embiid part. I'm just trying to drill down to the essence of what's the mentality.
I love it.
What's the mentality? I don't
And
think
look,
it'd
we
be
just
crazy.
did the show the other day on fit and best player available, all that stuff. He fits. And that's why when we talk about Con Knipple on Thursday's show and where people were like, why are you talking about Con Knipple? Guess what? You just pointed out. Jonathan Gavoni, was it ESPN that had him? Right, or Jeremy Woo, whatever one of them, had him right there in there. The draft starts at 3. If San Antonio doesn't do anything but take Dylan Harper, the draft starts at 3. And all of these names are on the table, not just because of the Sixers, but because of the trade possibilities that a team might want to jump in and take Ace Bailey or VJ Edgecombe.
Let me bring up exactly. You keep talking. I'm going to bring up
All
exactly
I'm
what's going on
saying here on this exact subject is if we're saying Daryl Morey is a guy who wants production. Right? Tangible production, you can't ignore the guy that put up 20 points a game in the best conference in America.
Rookie of the year.
Like you don't ignore him. I'm not saying I would
freshman of the year.
He's a level or two in terms of likelihood in my mind below Ace and VJ.
Yeah.
Right. Or even Con. Like Con, we've heard some real smoke at this point.
So here's the Con smoke from ESPN earlier today on their latest big board. Again, this was a mock draft, not a big board. So those rankings are not necessarily projecting to a team. But on Con Knipple, he wrote, on the heels of a remarkably efficient freshman season, Knipple is receiving long looks in the top 5 of this draft with his excellent shooting and overall readiness to contribute offensively, creating a strong selling point for front offices. Philadelphia, Charlotte, and Utah all represent potential landing spots and would benefit from plugging him in right away. Now, it's not necessarily reporting that the Sixers are considering it, in part because I think the Sixers are pretty locked down when it comes to what their actual intentions are. But you are starting to hear at least a little bit of buzz of he could be in play. Mm-hmm. Again, I don't think they should take him at 3. We talked about that pretty directly yesterday, but he is certainly in the realm of a top 5 pick.
And one last thing for me, because I've just been babbling like a buffoon today.
Have not.
The other big thing to emphasize here, especially in Philadelphia, they have kept their draft plans very quiet under Morey's organization generally, right? Like mostly on the trades too. D'Anthony Melton came out of nowhere.
Great.
We all kind of knew that opening draft and opening season he had that people were going to have to get moved and they're going to have to figure. But you know, the Seth Curry, Josh Richardson, Al Horford, like all that happened in a condensed space, and there was not a lot of buildup. It was just, hey, Woj has the story. They're traded, right? So a lot of this smoke that you're hearing, I am not pointing any fingers and saying these people don't know what they're talking about. I wouldn't say that about us if we were reporting it either. But they have done a much better job under this administration, certainly, than under Colangelo, and where it was just like
Colangelo
leaks going everywhere. The ship's got giant holes in it.
And look, still got like 26 days of this, folks. So
we've probably got 100 Brian Pumper super chats to get to between now and the draft.
And we have some right now that we're going to get to. So good segue to that. Brian Pumper with a super chat saying, rebounding, wingspan, and athlete. Got a perfect candidate for you. The spreadsheet warlords. Better use the data. Ace was faster than Valdez.
Pumper, I want to be clear here. You do not want them to use the data on this one. You can make the case for Ace Bailey. You do not want to get into the stat stuff. Yeah. It is.
Appreciate the super chat. Also,
he wasn't like a terrific rebounder either.
No.
He was okay.
No. Yeah, I mean, like raw numbers were fine, but the underlyings were.
What do you have, seven a game?
Something
like that. Yeah, so 7 a game for him. Thanks for the super chats today.
Size,
and all
wingspan,
week,
athleticism, shot making.
Really appreciate it.
That's your case. Do not look at any of the passing stuff. Do not look at any. Just stick to the stuff that you know works as part of the case.
Pump says, I'm cooking.
At least you said I'm cooking this time and not what you did yesterday.
Said I'm cooking. Love it, B Pump. All right. We got to get ready to get out of here. Let you guys get to your weekends. Don't forget about the golf tournament as well. The second annual PHLY Liberty Golf Open. The tournament's on the 14th of June, so go sign up for that at allphly.com. You can hang out with the Diehard community there, all of the PHLY talent that is there as well. You can get in on the single, foursome, or sponsor a hole. You could also team up to be in a foursome with Rich Hoffman, Jamie Lynch, Fran Duffy, all separate ones, but part of foursomes with those three guys here. And Tyler Zulli and his dad also. They're looking for two to play golf with on that day. So if you go sign up, allphly.com, check out the second annual PHLY Sports Liberty Golf Tournament, Open Golf Tournament presented by Xfinity. All right, so it should be a good time out there. We got a game 6 tomorrow, guys. After last night, got a game 6. So basketball continues.
We'll see if Indiana decides to show up for that one.
Don't. NBA Finals will begin next Wednesday. So if there is a game 7, we will be here to talk about it, at least previewing it on Monday ahead of the game.
Will you be in a place where you can talk about it?
Yeah, I try to be.
If you need a day off, like Kyle and I have it, we can even bring in Rich.
Well, I'm off on Wednesday.
Okay.
So for the other family stuff. So, yeah. I'll be here. I'll be here no matter what. All right. That was a fun one, man.
Bring in some tissues just in case.
Tears of joy.
Yeah.
Tears of joy.
So I just want to remember some guys. Day, man.
It was good, man.
We brought up before the show was like, hey, Fab Melo, Marshawn Brooks. Remember these guys that Daryl didn't take, but were in that draft class?
Yeah, that's good. Do you remember? Are you good with the colleges? I know you're not good with the numbers, but can you remember like the colleges and stuff?
Probably hit and miss.
Yeah,
probably hit and miss.
You?
Depends.
Melo was Syracuse, right?
Depends on the year.
How about Marshawn?
Providence.
Yep. Yeah,
that's a little bit of cheating. We talked about him before the show.
Providence with that one.
How about Rondé Hollis Jefferson?
Arizona.
Yeah. Yep.
Run him.
Jerian Grant.
Jerian, that is his brother. He went to.
His brother went to Syracuse.
Yeah.
Jerian went to. I want to say Providence, but that's wrong. I'm probably thinking Chris Dunn.
Michigan State.
Notre Dame.
Notre Dame. Damn.
Could do this all day. PJ Hairston.
No. That one I know. I don't.
This is like Devon asking me numbers. I'm like, who's that guy?
PJ
Hairston went to a big program.
Carolina?
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, how about Isaiah Cannon? You remember where he went?
Murray State.
Yeah.
I thought he was. I'm thinking of somebody else.
No, I'm pretty sure Devon's right on that one.
Both he and Campaign went to Murray State.
For some reason, I thought he was one of the Long Beach guys, but.
No, he went to Murray.
You're right.
You got another one?
Who went to Long Beach? Was that Ennis went to Long Beach?
James Ennis?
One of them went to, I swear I'm not making this up. Yeah, he went to Long Beach State.
There you
Good
go.
call.
James Ennis.
Yeah.
Anyway,
you can run a bunch of those.
Guys.
You can run a bunch of those, and I'm ready.
We've remembered.
I missed the Jerian Grant.
Remembered more than enough guys today. I think it's time to remember some chatters and a roll call.
Let's do that. Let's do that. This is world famous roll call to close out the week. Cannonball. That's right, Money Mar.
Thank you, everybody, for hanging out today as we played Remember some Daryl Morey guys and what does it all mean for the draft.
Good names.
Thank you to Marcus Blackstock, to Martian Lynch, to Mellow 3 Point, to my girl Winona, Philly 0024, Money Mar.
What up, Mar?
Public enemy number 1, Bootzilla.
Boots.
B Pump, the king of the Ace Bailey Super Chat, is in the building.
Got to get you a Sixers Ace Bailey jersey,
Paul.
Even if he's not drafted.
Thank you to Paul.
We should get a custom jersey.
Thank you to Attila.
He's
Thank you
giving
to
us
Jay
enough
the
money.
Jungle.
He gets that.
What up, Jay?
Vince Pellegrini.
Vinny.
Mom's grandchildren.
Hello, Mom.
Oh, by the way, Vince said Morey team tweeted out their board who they wanted to trade with. No, they did not. Somebody who was, I know what happened there. Somebody who was not affiliated with the team was in the facility, took a picture on draft day, posted it on their Instagram story, and it made its way to me because I'm the one who circulated it on Twitter.
Yep.
Just to be clear, they did not tweet out the picture. It wasn't like @Sixers posted their draft board. Like, that's a real distortion of what happened there. It's not good that it happened, but it's someone that they don't really have control over doing something
Right,
like
you just
that.
don't let
I
them
would
in the
put
building.
it that way. It's, anyway, that was a remember some Sixers draft history
That was wild.
moment. Brian Knight, thank you for being here.
What up, B-Night?
Humble Philly fan, thank you for being here.
Stay humble.
Oh, Sean Ford, thank you for being here. DC Marley.
What up, DC?
What's up, DC? Duck Holiday.
What up,
Super
Duck?
active as always on the draft shows. Jeffrey Stewart. Headfa.
What up, Jeff?
Jess with the Purple Heart.
Hey, Jess.
Phi Chi. Thank you, Phi Chi, for being here.
What up, Phi Chi?
That's crazy. You better love somebody.
Love somebody. Love somebody.
I didn't see him today, but we love our guy Al, the 2-minute warning. He's around somewhere.
What up, Al? He'll be back.
Big Bry is in the house.
Big brain on Bry.
Old Dirty Yams.
You
What's
got to
up,
make a new
Yams?
album, Old Dirty Yams.
I didn't see him today. Oh, SB Cole, I do see. The 76 man, very active, saying hello to a lot of people in the chat.
What up?
Lamar Williams. What's up, Lamar?
What up, Mar?
One more. Got it just because I love the name. Fidel Castro of the Strip
Fidel.
Club.
Welcome
Come on.
back, Fidel.
You can't beat that. Everybody, thank you. Hit the subscribe button on the way out. Hit the bell icon so you get notifications each and every time we go live. And please hit that thumbs up button to help us out in the algorithm. And also, of course, to say thank you to super producer Bree,
The best.
the legend herself, for sitting through nearly an hour and a half of Remember Some Guys on a Friday afternoon. Thank you, Bree. Thank you to all of you. We will be back Monday, 3 p.m., as we are each and every day. I don't know that we're doing this next week for sure, but we will very soon have a full week of boom or bust where we go through the upside case and the downside case for all the guys that we think are in play at 3. So you will
Get ready, Ace
you
Bailey
will
fans.
get 30 minutes of positive Ace Bailey talk and then 30 minutes of boy,
Beep
he's
up.
the worst. Just like you will for the other guys we consider. It's all going to be fair. Ace will probably be first because obvious reasons, but just be prepared. It's on the horizon. Until then, have a good weekend. Stay safe. Take care of each other. Enjoy yourselves.
Yes.
See you Monday.
See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.